What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Undesired and Prescribed Podcast. I am Jared, aka Brown Sugar. Today we'll be recapping Game 1 of the NBA Finals. With me here today, I have Ethan. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Great game, right?
I want to say it was a great game. That was kind of a snooze fest, but I think there's a lot that we were able to take away.
Yeah, that was obviously not what the Heat wanted to do to start out the finals. Obviously, they're hoping for probably a little bit closer.
Oh, they're definitely looking to get a much closer game. Probably looking to win too, I would say. But for the first three quarters, there was almost nothing that the Heat could be proud of. Like aside from obviously Jimmy Butler doing his thing, looking pretty sharp out there, but the help that Jimmy Butler has had throughout the playoffs just wasn't there tonight, it seemed.
Yeah, it seems the experience that LeBron's got, Anthony Davis, first time his debut in the finals, like they said, it definitely showed the experience that LeBron had, was able to carry his teammates a lot more than the success that the Heat have had even through this playoffs.
Yeah, even with like guys who have been there like long enough with Rondo, Danny Green with championship experience, so it definitely helps having that. I think one thing that I was definitely surprised with, and I'm sure you were too, with how excellent that Danny Green and KCP both play when throughout the whole season they've been dragged constantly for underperforming, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's the thing about the finals. Take one game at a time. Game one, you had KCP. Only shot 2 of 6 from the three-point line, but he made those two. Seems like at the right point of the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, Danny Green 3 of 8 doesn't jump out at you, but LeBron 2 of 4, Anthony Davis 2 of 4. Overall, they were hitting those threes in that first half, and the momentum that they carried throughout that first half and into the third quarter was able to allow them to get this game one and keep the momentum going for game two.
I would say so for sure. I think they. At the end of the first half, they were shooting like 11 of 17, which is kind of insane based off like how we've seen the Lakers play throughout the season and in the bubble. But the fact that they were shooting at that insane clip and the Heat weren't even close to even matching that, I think that definitely threw a lot of us off.
Yeah, coming into the game, I think that a lot of the talk was for Miami. They were the three-point shooting team. They were the team that was going to be trying to get Duncan Robinson going, Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic. They were the team that was supposed to be shooting those threes. And the Lakers, they were supposed to be playing, Anthony Davis supposed to be in the post, maybe Dwight Howard get them going, LeBron James in the post. But really, it was the Lakers. They were the three-point shooting team. The Heat had nothing going. I mean, Robinson didn't even score a point in this game. Mm-hmm. There's a lot they're going to have to change if they have any hope of trying to control the series moving forward.
Speaking back to the help that LeBron had, I mean, that's just like it's kind of sucks to say that. It's like, oh, LeBron had help this game, so that's why they're able to win. But like, I mean, I think it's just like obviously when it comes to the finals, LeBron is going to be great, and then the past two finals that we've seen LeBron in, there has definitely that last one he was in, next to no help. But just speaking on that, just like the help from people that weren't named LeBron James or Anthony Davis. I think it was really nice seeing Dwight Howard make those passes to Anthony Davis in the post. Like that, I think that like set like a really good like standard for the Lakers to follow throughout the whole series.
Yeah, that's something that I think Dwight Howard only played 15 minutes tonight. Didn't actually take a shot all night, which I think speaks to his understanding of his role on this team. Mm-hmm. He's going to be this guy who's going to be setting up Anthony Davis, kind of being the bully in the post so AD can try to get into the post himself. He's going to be the guy. He had 8 rebounds tonight, a couple offensive rebounds. He's not looking to be the AD of the Dwight Howard, of the 2009 season when he led the Magic to the finals. He understands his role. He understands his value to this team, and I think that's going to be one of the best assets for the Lakers, choosing which style they're going to play. And if Dwight Howard can be that center that's going to be doing all the little things, that's going to help AD out a lot.
It definitely will, because you mentioned the offensive rebounds, about Dwight getting offensive rebounds, but that was like a big thing for the Lakers in general, I would say. You'd like mentioned it, and we kept like talking about it throughout while we were watching the game. Was the fact of the Heat kept running that zone defense, and they ran it to the point where it's detrimental to their team and their actual defense because they just let up so many offensive rebounds, it seemed.
Yeah, that zone worked well at times against Boston. It took them seemed way too long to figure out the zone, and the Lakers are just a different animal of a team. You know, they got a lot smarter players. LeBron's seen everything the teams have put against him scheme-wise. You know, you got Rondo on the bench there. He's going to be able to pick apart the zone, and even the stops they got, we were talking about it, those offensive rebounds. You know, if you let up 6 offensive rebounds a game, if you let up even 1, that's too many. You got to be able to get those rebounds, and the zone, especially if you're only playing, you know, Bam Adebayo at the 5 and going small on your other 4 positions. You know, you don't have that rebounding. Whereas the Lakers, we mentioned the size that AD plus Dwight Howard plus LeBron, they're just going to be getting whatever they want out there.
Yeah, because they would when the Lakers would miss a shot, and I just specifically like remember like a lot of offensive rebounds in the first half alone. They had a ton in the second, but I can't remember just seeing that Jay Crowder was there in position to get the rebound, but he was just then Anthony Davis would just come up and manhandle him because he's like twice his size and a lot bigger than him, or Dwight Howard would just come out and just snatch it. It was like unrealistic. It seemed like it's like, why is Jay Crowder in that position of where he has to be able to box out these like 7 feet guys when he's like 6'9" or 6'10" or something like that?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. You know, Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, you know, these guys who are 6'8", 6'9", trying to box out guys 7 feet tall. It's just you're going to have all 5 guys committed to the boards, committed to boxing out and forcing the big men to get into foul trouble. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to be forcing players who are not normally put in this position to be doing something that I just don't know they're capable of.
Yeah, so going forward in the series, you said taking it one game at a time, which, you know, I think is going to be a very big thing, especially for the Heat, you know, with Bam's status up in the air. The X-rays came back negative on his shoulder, so I think that he'll play, but to what degree is he going to be the guy that we saw in the previous couple series against the Celtics and Bucks? But Goran Dragic, you know, we don't have anything definite on him, but when we were watching it, it looked like it had to have been something with like his tissue, because it was like a no contact when he like started like hobbling, and like that's when they like at the point of the injury. So it's going to be looking to see where they can adjust at that point. And I think they found Goran's, like, I don't want to say replacement, but the guy that's going to be able to like shelter the load that he normally would have, which would be Kendrick Nunn, who was their starter for the whole regular season, and then he got injured like right before the playoffs, which is why he kind of fell out of the rotation as it is. And like at that point, you know, they swept the Pacers, they beat the Bucks in 5, and then they were about to, and they're looking real sharp against the Celtics for the first like 3 games. So there really, it's no point to, you know, like change the formula up on that.
Yeah, game 2, it's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and when the tip's off, because you're talking about, you know, Dragic injured, you know, only played 15 minutes tonight with that odd injury. You know, it looked like they said that he was limping in the locker room. That doesn't sound like something that's going to be healing overnight. You might be looking to shelf him until game 3, possibly game 4. With Adebayo, you know, he's going to play. I think he's too important to this team. He knows his worth, and they don't have a replacement. You know, you talked about Kendrick Nunn stepping up. You know, he shot 8 of 11 tonight, 2 of 4. He was just one step quicker than the Lakers,
which is going to be important because the Lakers are one of like the best defending teams in the league, and especially in the playoffs too. They're still up there. But the thing about it is like they have like a lot of like 3-and-D guys with KCP, Danny Green, but they're up there in age. So having those fresh legs with Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, it's definitely going to be something big for the Heat that they're going to need to definitely like try to like expose or like play into, because Jimmy Butler is just going to be like great all around, I feel like, especially for the series. I mean, he took like a lengthy absence throughout like the second half because he was dealing with his ankle, and it was like a 30-point blowout, so there's really no point of him playing all too much other than trying to like have some momentum going into that game 2. But they're definitely going to need to rely on their younger guys, and Duncan Robinson is definitely going to need to have a much better game in game 2.
Yeah, you look at the benches of these two teams. You're talking about the youth that Miami has, Hero and Nunn, both rookies. Olynyk, he's not the oldest guy, but he's not the youngest guy. He's going to be able to play a little faster pace, perhaps. And then if you look at the Lakers, you got Rondo. He's old. Kuzma, he's not as athletic. You're going to have to be pushing the tempo even faster. They're going to be having to put these Lakers defenders in slightly uncomfortable positions for them, get them on their back leg, and just trying to be one step ahead of them all night.
That was something that I was like taking mental notes of, was the pace of the Miami Heat, is because in that starting lineup for the Lakers, they don't have too many guys that can just turn on the jet and go for it. I think because to me, I think they'll probably insert Nunn into the starting lineup, and if he's not going to be in the starting lineup, he's probably going to be the first or second guy off the bench for them, playing that point role. And I don't see why he wouldn't, if he's like started like all the games that he possibly could have in the regular season. But they need to take advantage of that pace, and I think Spoelstra will definitely probably try to create a game plan in which it's revolving around using those younger guys, playing at a much higher tempo, because I didn't understand why they were playing like so slow. I think maybe because they jumped out to that early 13-point lead, but the Lakers eventually eased into the game, and then they just eventually like took the game away in the second quarter.
Yeah, it's going to be a situation. They're going to have to try to get some of these one-on-one matchups. They're going to have to try to identify people. You got LeBron James, year 17. We saw last series against Jamal Murray in the fourth quarter. He's capable of defense, but you got to try to make him play defense in that first quarter, second quarter, so that by the fourth quarter he doesn't have the legs under him to be able to lock somebody down. That's going to be big. Anthony Davis, they got to find ways to try to focus it to do one-on-one defense against KCP. Against, Danny Green's solid, but one-on-one, I think that the Heat got to take advantage of these smaller matchups early in the game.
I think they're also going to need to try to force Anthony Davis out to the three-point line, because he's not a consistent enough shooter out there. And you mentioned that Dwight didn't even take a shot because, he knows his role, but I feel like if he's open, he will obviously take the shot. But if you try to, if you limit the shots that Anthony Davis takes in the post, he's obviously not going to be as an effective scorer, because I don't know how, it felt like he went to, the line, almost every single time he went up tonight, because he had 30-some points.
Double-digit free throws, 10 of 10 from the line.
Yeah, that's something that you can't allow, because, you're giving him points because he's a good free throw shooter, but the most important thing to take away from that is, he's a very physical big. And if you're allowing him to get his points from the free throw line and not having him go up and earn them, he's going to be in peak condition when you get down into these later stages of the game.
Yeah, the question for me is, how do you do that, right? Because Anthony Davis, 7 feet tall, massive body. You're already going to have one big on Howard. You're going to, if you're the Heat, who do you put on Anthony Davis to be physical? Jay Crowder's probably the biggest body that you can spare, because if Bam being injured, I'm not sure I want him exactly trying to throw shoulders with Anthony Davis. You're gonna take off maybe Myers Leonard off the bench. I don't see exactly how they're gonna be able to do that too well.
The concerning thing to me was the amount of minutes that they were playing Kelly Olynyk, and they weren't rotating any other bigs in there to try to figure out, who can we potentially use if Bam's not going to be available? Because, me personally, when I think of Myers Leonard or Kelly Olynyk, I'm thinking that, okay, they're bigs that can hit threes. I don't necessarily associate them with being great defenders, but they're really the only people on the Heat that have that size that can at least try to match up with their bigs.
Yeah, if Kelly Olynyk's going to be playing in this series, he played 18 minutes tonight, he's got to be taking smarter shots. He shot 1 of 5 overall. He didn't make either of his 2 attempts from three-point line. Several of his 3-point attempts, they were from the range that you'd be comfortable with Steph Curry taking, not Kelly Olynyk. He needs to be taking smarter shots, more in rhythm. If that's going to be his role in the team, he's got to be able to play a little better.
Yeah, and then this is like just now, Woj tweeted out that Goran Dragic has suffered a plantar tear in his left foot. So
a tear in his left foot.
Yeah, so we're not going to see him for the rest of the series.
Oh,
so.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
He's worked his whole career to be to this stage just for, he played 15 minutes, scored 6 points. You feel for the guy, but obviously for the Heat, it's going to be next man up. Kendrick Nunn's going to be stepping up back into a starting job.
I think he should. You had mentioned that like the potential starting lineup for them for going into the next game, and you had mentioned like going with like Hero, Butler, Robinson, Crowder, and then Bam if he's available. But I really think that it'd be crucial for them to make sure Nunn is that starter for them, because he gives them. We saw him play with like a hobbled Jimmy Butler for like a couple of minutes, but he single-handedly put them on that 8-0 run in the third quarter, I think, because he hit a 3, then he hit a reverse, and then he passed out to a Jay Crowder 3. I don't know. He hit somebody for an open shot, and I was saying like it's important to see him not only like it for me. It's easy for somebody to go like on like a nice little scoring spree and stuff like that, but if you're scoring and still able to find the open man, that's where you can tell that somebody's going to be consistent enough to make those plays throughout a series.
Yeah, last series we were talking with Tyler Hero. When he scored his record 35 points, then people were raving about his ability to hit the 3, hit the mid-range, hit layups, pass it, and that's what they need from Kendrick Nunn. Talking about he was showing his ability to stretch the floor. He made cuts, hit layups. He needs to be able to continue that. In his 20 minutes, he had 18 points and 2 assists. You'd like to see that assist number go up. You want to see him keep attacking, keep spreading the floor. I think that this has a possibility to not really be too much of a negative for the Heat. Because if in those 18 minutes that he played, or in those 20 minutes, that he played, he showed his ability to be able to expose some of the slower feet on the Lakers team. He's a player that the Heat are going to have to use.
And they definitely need to, because I don't think he touched the floor up until the third quarter. So I don't really think that he was planning like if the game was going the way that the Heat had won it, or if it was like a closer game, I don't think he probably would have touched the floor up until like the game had already been decided. So for him to get 20 minutes all in that second half and to do what he did, that obviously shows that he is probably like feeling like better. He's probably recovered from that injury, both like physically and now mentally, it would seem, and is able to come back and make the impact that they need him to make.
Yeah, he's finding that groove. Second half, obviously he's bummed. This is the NBA Finals. In the first half, he hasn't played hardly at all. That's the thing about Heat culture, though. So second half, his name was called. Heat was ready. He was ready to contribute. He's going to be called upon. And I think that he's found his rhythm. That was the issue coming into this playoffs. He lost his rhythm. He averaged 15 points in the regular season, first team All-Rookie. It's very rare to see, especially after a layoff where he had time to study his game, make adjustments. It was going to happen one game or another where he found his rhythm, and I think we might have seen that tonight.
Oh, they actually said, Woj just tweeted that he has been able to put pressure on his left foot and hasn't ruled out returning to play in the NBA Finals. But I probably wouldn't expect him to unless it gets to the point of a Game 6 or a Game 7. But
yeah, that's the sort of injury where I'm sure nothing could shut him down. He's not going to allow the doctors to tell him that he has to go get surgery tomorrow. He's not going to allow the Heat to shut him down. He's going to most likely be just on the bench, providing support for his teammates. But, who knows? If the Heat can extend the series to 6-7 games and he's able to get treatment on it, that's, he's a tough player. Like everyone on the Heat, he's tough. There's no quit in him. He might return. You never know.
Yeah, I think It'll definitely be interesting to see, because I had said that, before tip off, I was saying that it's going to be. I thought it was going to be Lakers taking the series in 6 games. I mean, after watching this first game and then the injuries piling in, it's confirmed that he has a tear in his foot, and then bam, his X-rays are negative, so we expect him to play, but if he's going to be playing at 100%, probably not. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they're able to do as a team, because we can only speculate of where their heads are at and what Spoelstra wants to get out of them in the game plan for Game 2, but whether or not they'll actually be able to execute it, because they still have a lot of young guys on there. But I know that Jimmy Butler has been have high expectations for this group, and it's really shown that he's able to push them and get the very best out of them, I would say.
Yeah, there's anyone built for this moment, it's got to be Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. He's had his name counted out, his reputation in the league torn down. He's rebuilt it all. He's got teammates now that he trusts in. He's got a culture that he believes in. Mm-hmm. Pat Riley, he knows he's not going to let him down. I think it's a sure bet to know that Jimmy Butler will, 1 game, 2 games, whoever it may be, show that the Heat culture are capable of competing in this series. And I think it's up to Bam getting healthy and showing that he's able to match Anthony Davis' production. I think that it's just going to be a whole team effort. Everyone's got to support their teammates. They got to step up, and I'm not ruling out this thing going 6 or 7 games.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be kind of crazy to say, despite the fact that he had 30 points. He was fouled a lot, so I think on the offensive end, yeah. But I think I kind of wanted to see more out of Anthony Davis when it comes to the defensive end, because he really wasn't. I don't know. It just felt like he was going through the motions on defense. He wasn't really being called upon to have to do too much, because there's not really a lot of threats down low besides Bam for the Heat, because they have a lot of perimeter players. But I would have liked to see a little bit more hustle, because granted he wasn't hitting them, but Jay Crowder was getting a lot of open looks, and he was getting back to him late. So I kind of want to see more intensity out of him on defense. But again, that could have just been the pace of the game and how early they took such a substantial lead.
Yeah, they say this is a make or miss league, and that was true tonight. The Lakers were taking all their threes, and they just seemed to be making them at the right time. Whereas the Heat, they also had, if not wider open shots, they were just missing them. And I think that's something, that adjustment's going to have to be made. They're going to have to try to make Anthony Davis get put in more, pick and rolls perhaps. Perhaps they're going to have to be trying to do anything they can just to make him use more effort, more energy, so they can tire him out on the offensive end. Because like you said, he's not going to be able to shoot 2 of 4 from the three-point line every game. He's going to have to get his butt in the post. He's going to have to be earning points the hard way. 10 free throws, they did well tonight, attempting to try to make him earn it. They're just going to have to be more physical and adjust their schemes, get him more involved on the defensive end, and make him use more energy.
This is definitely going to be something big going forward. And we had already talked about them using that zone defense, and that was detrimental. Usually when you watch NBA finals that involve LeBron James, with the Warriors and with the Spurs, the defense always seemed to be built around the idea of stopping LeBron. Tonight, I didn't get that feel at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how their defense is going to look, because obviously I hope they stay away from the zone, and if they do go back to only use it situational, but to see how LeBron responds, because he didn't seem all that aggressive tonight. He didn't seem like how I've grown accustomed to seeing him in the finals, but mainly because he doesn't have to be that aggressive guy that has to do everything. He's just out there. He can find his open guys, and if there's a mismatch on defense, he can take that easy lane to the basket.
Yeah, you're talking about that the Lakers team all year long. Everyone's assumed it's been LeBron's team. He's showing Anthony Davis how to be a winner, how to get in the playoffs, the mentality that he has to have. But I think if you're the Miami Heat going into Game 2, you got to view this as Anthony Davis' team. He had more points. He set the tone for the Lakers offensively. and I think you got to make LeBron, dare I say, prove it. Mm-hmm. You know, you're 17. He's been in 9 finals, but I think if you're the Heat, you got to make LeBron show you that he's still got that 3-point touch. He's still got, you know, a nice mid-range game. You know, he's old. You know, you got to make him try to play young man's game. Try to make him, you know, not be Anthony Davis. You got to make him earn his points, and you got to game plan as if it's Anthony Davis's team and his offense.
Yeah, because I talked about the pace earlier. I think that's just going to be a very important thing for the Heat going forward. Is, you know, try to like get the tempo to like get up there, because like LeBron's great, and it's his 17th year. You know, like I'm not saying that he won't be able to like, you know, like play that defense and like keep up with them, but you have to wear him out, because the thing that I had noticed, and I think you had noticed it too, was of how early LeBron was sitting, and like how fine that the Lakers were off, or their bench was. Granted, like I think that this was like a particularly like above average game, like a real above average game for their bench. But the fact that, you know, LeBron, when he did sit out, it wasn't getting to the point where, oh, they're starting to cut this 30-point lead down. Okay, it's now down to 20. It's now under 20, anything like that. It was like they did that when LeBron was in. Granted, it was probably like, you know, like they were all like just cruising to a win, because it was like a 17-point lead with like 5 minutes left at that point. So
yeah, it was a little odd in that first half. You know, the Heat got out to that early 13-point lead, and it was then that LeBron went to the bench. Mm-hmm. It was then that the Lakers started playing a little bit more spread out. They started hitting some 3-point shots. And it seemed it was like almost the opposite. They were playing almost better at the beginning of the game, mm-hmm. with LeBron on the bench. Now, obviously, once he returned after that, he was able to pick up where they left off.
Yeah.
But I think that was a turning point. You know, they outscored the Miami Heat at a run of 70-35 at one point. And that was right after he went to the bench. And I think that's where you got to look at the Heat. You know, they played the first 4 or 5 minutes of this game perfectly, mm-hmm. but then after that, they just let it go.
Yeah, so I am very curious to how they will respond, because initially when the game started, it was looking like, oh wow, like so the Heat came out swinging, but I feel like I figured that the Lakers would come back and make the game competitive. I didn't think it was going to be like a blowout throughout, especially with the Heat, but it's going to be interesting to see how they come out next game. And if they do manage to get that early lead, if they can maintain it, because obviously his experience in the league and in the finals showed tonight, when how, as opposed to like keeping themselves down and like have that mentality of like playing from behind, when they were down that to those 13 points, you know, they just played their way. They didn't try to do anything that they weren't.
Yeah, they weren't nervous at all. They weren't feeling the pressure, feeling like it was first quarter. They understood that they had 3 quarters to go, and they understood that all it took was a little run. And I think that's where the Heat need to learn, mm-hmm. is that, you know, 13-point lead, you think all is well. You think maybe the Lakers are coming out a little flat, you know, a little slow. But obviously after that when LeBron out, their energy picked up. Mm-hmm. You know, a switch was flipped, and the Heat were just never able to get what they had.
Yeah, so it's just going to be. I think it's going to be very important to see how that game 2 starts off, because the momentums can shift so much. And it felt like it did quite a bit this game. Like, I mean, obviously when the Heat came out, they had all the momentum, and then the Lakers took it back at the end of the first quarter and kept it all the way up until they put Kendrick Nunn in the game. He had the momentum. He single-handedly had the momentum, not the Heat. And then they took that momentum back. But then even in the fourth quarter, it was still Kendrick Nunn, but Tyler Hero was getting involved a little bit. And, you know, other guys started hitting their shots too, so it was looking pretty nice. And then the Lakers just took it back, and then that was it for game 1, essentially.
Yeah, I think that if you're the Lakers, you got to be a little bit nervous for one thing only. They came in after the third quarter. They had a huge lead heading into the fourth quarter, and they coasted. It felt like for a brief moment there, like Miami might have found something.
Mm-hmm.
They might have found the Lakers sleeping, slacking on the job, content with the lead they had, and they believed that it was enough to get the job done. And at the end of the night, it was. They got the win. But I think now, you get one game, they've won. You got to get to 4. And I think if that fourth quarter showed anything, that the Lakers can't allow the Heat to get any confidence going. They can't allow the Heat to get 1 game, 2 games. They need to be able to keep their foot on the gas the entire series and not allow them to start getting in lulls. Any period of time where the Heat get confidence is a time when the Lakers are vulnerable.
Yeah, because like I said it when we were watching the game, and I also mentioned that this is like an above average game for the supporting cast, and even the announcing team mentioned it. And you said something about there's like no set third person, no third option on that team. And I personally don't think I just haven't seen enough at this point to confidently say that, KCP, Danny Green are all going to keep that same energy all throughout the series. I don't know, it's just, to me, they had a 30-point lead, but to me, if this was like a normal like regular season game, and obviously you have to take that with a grain of salt because this is the NBA Finals, but if this was just a normal game, that's probably like a 15 or 20-point lead if the Heat played the way that they did and the Lakers played like how they normally have been, especially even the playoffs, early on at least. Yeah,
I think that was one of the things that Lakers were trying to figure out. Kyle Kuzma, they've been trying to figure out where he fits in their game plan. I think that Kyle Kuzma believes himself that he's better than being, your seventh guy off the second guy off the bench, seventh guy on the floor. I think that the Lakers though have got to be able to understand that he is not that third star, and I think that at some place they're not going to have a night like tonight where everyone was hitting their shots at the right time. They're going to have games where just shots aren't going in, and they're going to have to find ways to win.
I know. That's going to be interesting to see if Game 2 for the Lakers is how this first game was for the Heat, where they are getting the looks, because they were getting the looks still, because some Heat players were definitely late on rotations, but it's going to be interesting to see how the team responds when they aren't making those open shots. Is LeBron going to turn up into this, this NBA Finals beast that we've known him to be, especially in the past couple years with Cleveland? Or is it going to be something where Anthony Davis takes over and says, LeBron, you take this and you find me? I think it's going to be interesting to see if that happens this series, which I feel like it's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron has made it abundantly clear that his only goal right now in life is to get this finals win. Mm-hmm. He's sacrificed over 2 months of his life away from his son, his family back in California. Obviously he's got his wife now with him in the bubble, mm-hmm. but LeBron's made it clear that he's only there to win. And I think that he'll understand the game. He understands where the momentum's going. He's going to know whether to hand it off to AD, let him work it in the post, hit 3-point shot. I think LeBron's got this figured out, and that's the scary part for the Heat. Is LeBron's smarter than their entire team? LeBron is in year 17. He'll figure it out one way or another, when to press the buttons, when to get himself going. You just got to hope that LeBron might overstep for his age at one point in the series. Maybe tries one half to go hard too much, and maybe that'll cost him a second half where he's too tired. You just got to make him try to make one too many mistakes.
You got to definitely try to expose the age of LeBron James this series. Whether or not it's going to work, I can't guarantee, but there has to be some sort of effort to, say, this is year 17 for LeBron, so we have to try to expose that age and the fact that, he's not going to be able to, go 110% for 4 quarters in total. I mean, I still believe he has the ability to take over games, and I've I've seen it a couple times, especially in that Portland series where he just takes over. He still has the ability to do that, but I don't know. It's going to be imperative for them to make the effort at least.
Yeah, I think this might be where we see the shortened season with those extra couple months that LeBron got for rest. I think this might be where we see a finals where he's able to not be tired down, show that he's, even in year 17, you don't expect anyone in year 17 to be doing what he's doing. He's a unique man, a unique player, one of a kind. But I think that he got lucky. Those 3 months that he got off, he didn't have to play 82 games and then start the playoffs.
Yeah.
He only had 8 games that he could coast through because they had clinched that first seed after only a couple games. He was able to go 0 dark 30, as he says, much later into the run than usual. He wasn't forced to start getting into his playoff mentality after 75 games. He was able to take 3 months, study the other team, study his opponents that he would probably have to face, and I think that's in the long run might be the difference in this series.
Definitely, because it's always talked about how much money he invests into his body in the off season, like millions of dollars to like make sure it's going to have like peak condition, and obviously 3 months is going to benefit him. I was always saying that like out of every single person in the league, every team, this LeBron will definitely benefit the most because, to be quite honest, they didn't feel like a real number 1 seed in the West. Like everybody going into the season. I mean, the consensus coming out of the Western Conference was either going to be the Lakers or the Clippers, but I felt like the majority of people were in the boat of it's probably going to be the Clippers because, on the Lakers it's just LeBron and AD. There's not that third option. While there's Kawhi and Paul George, like the best two-way duo in the league by far, and then they have several other components that fit really well with them, with like Patrick Beverly, Lou Will, Harrell, and all those other people. But LeBron definitely took advantage of that and is using it, now to where he is not gassed, because we've seen it, that he went 4-1, 4-1, 4-1, and now is in the finals again. So
yeah, you look at who LeBron had to face. The first round they played Portland, and he faced Carmelo Anthony. That's not going to stress him out. Second round they faced Houston. Houston, they could stick him on anyone. James Harden even probably isn't that hard for him. And then obviously against the Denver Nuggets, I don't think LeBron had to face an equal. Someone of his caliber that truly is on the Kawhi Leonard scale that he would have had to face if they had to play the Clippers.
Yeah.
I think that Kawhi Leonard was the difference for LeBron between a grueling 7-game series, because you talk about the Clippers, it's not just the fact that they had the depth, they had 10 deep for even a playoff rotation. It was the way that their bodies would be able to grind down on LeBron, grind down Anthony Davis. I think that was extremely lucky for LeBron that he did not have to go through that, because now he's in the finals. And the Heat have Jimmy Butler, and he's a dog. He's going to fight for every inch, every bucket that LeBron scores. But I think that Kawhi Leonard was just the difference between LeBron being able to be as ready as he is for the moment versus maybe him still trying to get his body right for the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's something else that is different this year. Him making it to the finals is the fact that although he is not called upon to be that number 1 scoring option. That duty falls to like Anthony Davis. Like, granted, he still scores like a point. It's like a 2 or 3 point difference in their points per game or something like that. All he really has to do consistently on a daily or a nightly basis is find the open man, which he's done his entire career. It's what he's known for, is being that smart of a player. And it's definitely a lot easier to where he is asked to be that player, but it doesn't also have to be the number 1 scoring option too. Granted, Kyrie could easily be the scoring option, the number 1 scoring option, but it was not really. He wasn't somebody that like you can just dump off to and he can just go and get a bucket every single time. When Anthony Davis has that size and length to go down low and bully just about anybody and get the bucket every time.
Yeah, he's going back to the Miami days. He's got people. He's got a team around him. Cleveland, both times he was there, they traded for pieces, but it truly always fell on LeBron's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And now, just like in Miami, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and they had underrated shooters. Mario Chalmers, Norris Cole back in the day. They had Shane Battier. They had players who could make the shots when they needed to be counted on. And I think that's what the Lakers have now. You got players who LeBron trusts. I think Anthony Davis is the most talented and most built for the moment player that LeBron's ever played with. Mm-hmm. Dwayne Wade wasn't in his true prime. Chris Bosh was never had that alpha in him. I think Anthony Davis is just another beast that allows LeBron to identify the moment, identify the right play, and not make forced plays like he occasionally had to do when he was on the Cavs.
Yeah. I would just say, the biggest takeaway that I took from the first game is of how well the Lakers were able to play throughout without having to rely on LeBron James doing it all, whether it is, leading everybody on defense, maestroing the offense. There was times where he took a step back and he let Rondo do his thing, or he would just get it down low and Anthony Davis would get fouled. So I think that'd be my biggest takeaway and from game one is how well that supporting cast worked for LeBron and the Lakers.
Yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway that you got to take from this game, for me, it's got to be what is Eric Spoelstra going to do? I think that the players on the court tonight, is controlled by the Lakers all around. But going into game two, I think this is where we're going to see the coaches separate the great ones from the good ones. I think Eric Spoelstra has shown time in, time out this season and this postseason that he is able to make adjustments, change his scheme at the right time. And I think when push comes to shove, I would rather have him than Frank Vogel of the Lakers. I think that for the Lakers, you gotta try to make it come out. Is LeBron the one making the call? Is Frank Vogel really the coach here? I think that Eric Spoelstra's got to press the right buttons at the right time and just cause a little bit of friction for that Lakers to try to figure out who's really in charge in this moment.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing towards the end of the game, we're seeing a little chirping back and forth between the Lakers players when the Heat were going on that run, and we're getting it ever so close to cutting it to that 10-point lead after it had been 30 for a large majority of the second half, and then came back down to 20. But you saw a little chirping back and forth between them. So I don't think it's going to be something that's going to entirely affect the series as a whole. It might see a pop up if the Heat are able to take a game, or if they do take game two, that might be something that we see. But I think it's going to be definitely interesting to see in game two how Eric Spoelstra responds in terms of assignments, defensive settings, and the rotations and all that other stuff. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to game plan for it, trying to cause some issues, I think you got to look at what happened last year to LeBron and the Lakers. From the beginning, LeBron was not on the same page as his teammates. Mm-hmm. You got a different set as this year, but it's clear that LeBron expects perfection from his teammates, hard effort, and if you can cause a couple plays, if maybe KCP misses a rotation, if you can cause Kuzma to maybe miss a blockout, I think you have a chance to cause a little bit of a competitive advantage for you and maybe have the Lakers talking, questioning each other, maybe not confident that the other will be there. And if you can cause even a little bit of that, maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to get an open look, the right shot at the right time, and you might be able to win game two.
All right, so final thoughts in for this episode. What do you predict for the outcome of game two?
For Game 2, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of what we saw in Game 1. You know, for as much as the Heat are going to do to try to game plan with their new addition for Kendrick Nunn probably in the starting lineup, I think we're going to be seeing the Lakers overwhelm the Heat with their size. Yeah, I just don't think the Heat have someone, especially with the health status of Bam in question. I don't think that the Lakers have any worry. They're going to be able to shoot the shots they want at the time they want. And hey, if they don't, they got LeBron, they got AD, they got options to fall on. Jimmy Butler can only do so much for the Heat.
My expectations, I'm definitely expecting to see a much closer game, despite the fact that they're losing Goran Dragic. Bam probably, if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. I'm definitely expecting the game to be closer because, you know, I do personally think that Eric Spoelstra is in that like top tier of coaches in the NBA. So I think he's going to, you know, take the rest of tonight, tomorrow, and game plan for that game 2. And I think the next game is going to be a lot closer because Jimmy's going to definitely like demand like more out of his guys, and we're going to see that more because I think he's able to get that out of them. That being said, I think that the Lakers, you know, they're a well-coached team, and it's a lot of veterans there. So, you know, they are probably going to be hunkered in, and they're not going to be too thrown off by the fact that, you know, the team that made it out of the Eastern Conference is actually here to play. You know, I don't think there's going to be any sort of, you know, surprise factor from them and poor reaction or anything like that, but I would still probably take the Lakers to take game 2, but a much closer game, and I hope it's a much closer game.
Yeah, for the sake of this NBA Finals in general, you really hope that the Heat can at least put an effort that might inspire a Game 3 or Game 4 win.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wrap on Game 1. Appreciate you being here and talking about the finals with me.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Great to be on this podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of the UP. See ya.